I never thought I'd be that guy who finds out his wife's been cheating on him, especially not right before I was about to propose. Emily and I had been together for about 3 years now. We met in college, and everything seemed perfect, or at least it did until recently. She's always been a bit of a bitch, honestly. Super entitled, always acting like she's the queen of the world, but I loved her for her sharp tongue and her confidence. We were planning to get engaged. I even bought the ring a couple of weeks ago, secretly, because I wanted everything to be perfect. But something felt off lately. She'd been acting weird, secretive, and distant. I'd catch her sneaking her phone around, deleting messages, and she'd snap at me if I even tried to look at her screen. She'd come home late, claiming she was working late at her boutique, but I'd hear her whispering on the phone sometimes, muffled voices that didn't sound like her boss. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe I was paranoid, but deep down I knew something was wrong. Then came the signs I couldn't ignore anymore. The little things. She started wearing different perfume, always changing her scent like she was trying to hide something. She'd come home after hanging out with friends, but I'd catch her sneaking around, texting someone from her phone, or she'd dodge questions about her whereabouts. I even found a lipstick stain on her collar one day, not mine, obviously. And the biggest red flag. She started avoiding me more and more. I'd try to have a normal night, just us, and she'd be glued to her phone or distracted. One night I decided to follow her. I didn't want to, but I needed to know the truth. She said she was meeting her sister, but I saw her slip out of the house late at night, wearing a hoodie, her hair pulled back. I followed her at a distance, and what I saw made my stomach drop. She was parked outside our neighbor's place, Mike's house, with her window down, and I saw them kissing, deep and passionate. My heart stopped. It was like getting punched in the gut. I never thought Emily, my wife, would cheat on me with someone next door, especially not Mike. The worst part, she didn't see me. She didn't know I was watching. She was actually cheating on me just days before I was gonna surprise her with the proposal. I felt every ounce of my world crashing down. All the lies, all the pretending, everything I believed in, it was a lie. How could she do this? How could she lie to my face about everything? The betrayal cut so deep I couldn't breathe. I stood there in the dark, my fists trembling, trying to process what I had just seen. It was like I'd been hit by a freight train. I never wanted to come to this point, but I knew I had to confront her. I had to hear her lie to my face, or maybe I just wanted to hear her explanation. Either way, I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know. The moment I saw her with Mike, my mind went blank for a second. I just stood there in the shadows, watching her press her lips to his, her hands tangled in his shirt. It was so raw, so real. I knew it was wrong to stay and watch, but I couldn't look away. Part of me was in shock, part of me was furious, and part of me felt like I'd been slapped so hard I was bleeding inside. I had no idea how to process this. After what felt like forever, my legs finally moved. I backed away slowly, trying not to be seen, but my mind was racing. I couldn't believe she was doing this, cheating on me with our neighbor, right under my nose, just days before I was about to propose. I thought about all the times she'd claimed she was working late or hanging out with her friends, and now I knew those stories were lies. She was sneaking around with Mike, lying right in front of my face. The betrayal burned so deep I could barely breathe. I drove home in a daze, my hands shaking on the wheel. I kept replaying everything I saw, trying to grasp how someone I loved could be so cruel, so deceitful. I wanted to confront her immediately, but I also knew I needed a plan. I couldn't just burst in there and scream at her in rage. I had to be smart. I needed to get her to admit it, or at least catch her in a lie. I knew her too well. She'd deny everything, spin some bullshit story, and act like I was crazy. But I wasn't about to let her get away with it so easily. By the time I got home, I had my mind made up. I'd wait until morning, then confront her. I had to hear her explain, but honestly, I didn't think she'd have a good excuse. I kept thinking about the future I'd planned, the proposal, our life together, everything we'd talked about. It all felt pointless now. She'd been lying to me about everything, and the worst part was I'd been so blind. I was stupid enough to trust her, to believe she was the woman I married. Turns out she was just another liar, another cheat hiding behind a pretty face and bitchy attitude. That night was sleepless. I lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to hold back the tears and anger. I kept wondering how she could be so cold, so selfish. How could she do this to me? I kept asking myself if I was just a fool for loving her, or if I was stupid for thinking she cared. The pain was unbearable. I never thought I'd see my wife in bed with our neighbor, already planning to throw away everything we had for a quick fuck. It made me sick. When morning finally came, I knew what I had to do. I had to confront her face to face. I needed answers, and I needed to decide whether I wanted to stay and forgive, or cut her out of my life for good. I looked at her phone and copied some messages, just casual, flirtatious texts, nothing too obvious but enough to prove she was lying. I also found out she'd been texting him nonstop, even during the day. I felt like I was losing my mind, and that's when I realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I'd been betrayed in the worst way, and there was no going back from this. The confrontation with Emily was worse than I imagined. I woke her up that morning, and she looked at me with that smug, bitchy attitude she always had, like she thought she was untouchable. I laid out everything I'd seen, the kissing, the texts, the late nights. Her face didn't change much at first. She just sat there crossing her arms, giving me that "you're crazy" look. "You're overreacting," she said, brushing her hair back. "It's nothing. Just a stupid mistake, and honestly, I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of it." That's when I lost it. I told her about the messages I'd copied, about the times I'd caught her sneaking around, and how she'd been lying to me the entire time. That's when she finally snapped. Her eyes narrowed and she started spinning some bullshit about how she's not the person you think I am, and that Mike meant nothing, but she was just lonely or some other excuse. I could see right through her. She was trying to gaslight me, make me doubt what I saw with my own eyes. She kept telling me I was crazy or jealous, trying to turn it around like I was the one at fault. But I wasn't buying it. I'd already seen too much. And then she got downright bitchy. She started yelling, saying I was just paranoid, that I'd never been enough for her, and that I was just possessive and controlling. She called me insecure and accused me of spying on her like some crazy stalker. I couldn't believe her. How could she be so cold, so manipulative? She kept throwing these accusations, trying to turn the tables on me, but I knew the truth. She'd been cheating on me with the guy next door, and she thought she could lie her way out of it. My head was spinning, and I felt like I was about to explode. I told her I wanted her out of the house, that I didn't want to see her face anymore, and she just looked at me with that condescending smirk, like she was enjoying the power she had over me. That moment, I realized there was no point trying to salvage this. She'd already burned whatever was left of our relationship. All the promises, all the plans destroyed in a matter of minutes. She stormed out of the room, still pretending she was the victim, still lying about how she never meant for it to happen, and how she was sorry, but it's too late. I could feel my world shattering, but at the same time, a strange sense of relief started creeping in. I finally saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish bitch who thought she could get away with anything. And I knew deep down that I'd never trust her again. The aftermath was chaos. I didn't sleep that night, just sat there, staring at the walls and trying to process everything. I knew I needed to get out of that house. She was no longer a part of my life, not just because she cheated, but because she'd shown her true colors. I felt betrayed, angry, hurt, and somehow I also felt a strange sense of liberation, like I'd been freed from a toxic nightmare I'd been living in. The question now was what to do next. Do I try to fix this? Do I cut her out completely? Or do I just walk away and pretend none of this ever happened? Honestly, I didn't have an answer yet, but I knew one thing: I'd never be the same after this. The days that followed were a blur of anger, sadness, and confusion. I moved out of the house, taking only what I needed and leaving everything else behind. The house, which once felt like my home, now felt like a trap, a reminder of everything I'd lost. I stayed with a friend for a while, trying to get some space from the emotional chaos. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with Mike, and that image haunted me. It was like a scene I couldn't erase, no matter how hard I tried. I kept replaying the confrontation in my head, wondering if there was anything I could have said differently, any sign I missed. But honestly, deep down, I knew I didn't do anything wrong. She betrayed me. She lied to my face for months, maybe longer. The worst part, I had trusted her completely. We'd been through so much together and I thought we had something real. Turns out she was just pretending to care, pretending to love me while she was sneaking around with our neighbor. The thought made me sick. I also started questioning myself, wondering how I missed all the signs. Was I blind? Was I naive? Or just too in love to see the truth? It's a terrible feeling, realizing you only saw what you wanted to. See, my friends told me to cut her out, to move on, but some part of me was still holding on to hope that I'd find some way to fix this, that maybe she'd come back and admit she screwed up. But I knew that was just wishful thinking. She'd already shown her true colors and I had to accept that. One thing I couldn't shake was the anger. Not just at her, but at myself for trusting her so blindly. How could I have been so stupid? I was furious she'd lied about everything, about how she'd humiliated me in my own home. And then there was the betrayal with Mike. That was the punch in the gut, the fact that she'd chosen him over me, over us. It made me realize how little she actually valued what we had, that she saw me as nothing more than a secure fallback, someone she could manipulate until she found something better. Despite all the pain, I started to see things more clearly. I realized I deserved better than someone who could do this to me. I deserved respect, honesty, and someone who truly cared. I didn't want to be with someone who lied, cheated, and played games like she did. I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't let her ruin me. I'd rebuild, learn from this, and move on. I'd find someone who appreciated me, not someone who took me for granted. But even as I told myself all this, I still felt the ache inside. The betrayal cut so deep. It's like a wound that keeps bleeding, no matter how much you try to bandage it. And I wondered if I'd ever be able to trust again, or if I'd carry this scar forever. The worst part is, I can't unsee what I saw. I'll forever have that image burned into my mind, her kissing Mike, her lying to my face, her bitchy smirk when she left. It's a lot to process, and honestly, I don't think I've fully done that yet. I just know I can't stay in that house, in that life anymore. It's time to start over, even if I don't know exactly what that looks like yet. After leaving the house, I knew I had to make some serious decisions. Staying in that environment, even temporarily, was just making everything worse. I started going to therapy, not because I thought I could fix her or the situation, but because I needed to fix myself. I needed to understand how someone I loved could betray me so completely, how I could have missed all the signs, and how I could pick up the pieces of my shattered world. Talking to a counselor helped, but honestly, nothing could undo the damage. The trust was gone. I kept thinking about revenge, about ways I could make her feel what I was feeling, the pain, the humiliation, the betrayal. I was furious enough to want to ruin her, to make her regret ever crossing me. But I also knew that revenge wouldn't bring me peace. It was tempting, sure, but I realized I needed to focus on myself now. I needed to take control of my life again, rebuild what was broken, and somehow find a way to move forward. One day, I decided to go back to the house just to see what was left, to confront the emptiness, the ghosts of my past. The place felt cold and hollow, like a shell of what it once was. I saw her stuff still there, scattered across the room, some of her clothes and makeup. I felt a surge of anger, but I kept it in. I knew I had to be smart. I didn't want to burn bridges or do something I'd regret later. Instead, I just packed up everything I could and left. It was about reclaiming my dignity, taking back my power. I also started planning my next steps. I knew I couldn't stay in that town, not with her and Mike still around. I was considering a fresh start somewhere new, maybe a different city, a different job. I wanted to erase the memories of her, of that betrayal, and build a life where I was in control again. I didn't want to be a victim anymore. I wanted to be the guy who moved on, who learned from the pain and came out stronger. The thing I learned most of all, heartbreak hurts like hell, but it's also the wake-up call you never wanted. I was naive, trusting too much, and I paid the price. But I also realized I was better off without her. I deserved honesty, respect, and someone who truly cared. I started putting myself first, doing things I loved, and reconnecting with friends I'd lost touch with. Slowly, I began to feel like I was rediscovering myself. The anger was still there, but it was less fierce, more controlled. I knew I was healing even if it was going to take a long time. Now I'm not exactly sure what's next, but I do know I'm done with that chapter. I'll rebuild, I'll move on, and I'll be okay, probably better than I ever was with her. I just wish I'd seen it sooner, but maybe this was always meant to happen. Sometimes, the universe has a way of forcing you to wake up. And honestly, I'm glad I finally did. Looking back now, I realize that this whole ordeal has changed me in ways I never expected. It's like I lost a part of myself, but I also gained clarity. The betrayal cut deep, but it also pushed me to finally see what I deserve: honesty, loyalty, respect. I used to think I was the one at fault, that maybe I wasn't enough. But I've come to understand that no one should settle for being second best, especially not for someone who lies and cheats. I've started to rebuild my life from scratch. I got a new job, moved to a different city, and made a conscious decision to focus on myself. I've found peace in rediscovering old passions and developing new ones: hiking, reading, even trying to learn how to cook, which is a work in progress. I've also learned to trust again, but more carefully this time. I know now that not everyone is worth your trust, and that's okay. Protecting yourself is part of growing. The biggest lesson I've taken away from all this is that revenge is a false comfort. It might feel good for a moment to think about hurting her back, but ultimately it's not worth it. The real victory is walking away with your dignity intact, knowing you didn't let her poison your life. I refuse to let her win. I'm the one who's moving forward. It's strange, really. Betrayal like this can totally shatter your world, but it can also be a catalyst for something better. I know now what I want: someone who values me, who's honest, who doesn't hide behind lies and deceit. I'm not rushing into anything. I'm just taking my time to heal. One day, I hope to find that genuine love again, but for now, I'm just focusing on being whole myself. And honestly, if I have any advice for anyone reading this, it's this: don't stay in a toxic relationship just because you think you're supposed to. Trust your instincts, listen to what your gut says, and don't be afraid to walk away. The pain will fade, and what's left is a stronger, wiser version of yourself. You don't need someone who cheats or lies to feel complete. You just need to remember your worth. So yeah, I may have lost a lot, but I also gained a lot of perspective. Life is too short to waste on lies, and I've learned that sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to find out how high you can really go. I'm picking myself up now, and I'm moving forward better, stronger, and more aware than ever before.